Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming, first of all. And that's our first session, so it's, yeah, good, we're set. All right, great.
Can we shut that one light?
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully you're in the right place. So our title of our talk is Our Common Ground, both the AU Arboretum and Airlie Center. So the idea today is we're going to kind of go through some quick slides just to introduce you. I know I see a lot of familiar faces here, which is great. I also see some new faces that I don't know, so that's even better. So that's why we want to go through a little bit of an introduction to both AU's Arboretum and Airlie. And then we're going to open it up for hopefully a nice, lively discussion at the end. Okay, good. So this is a scene from Airlie. So our four presenters today, what I'd like to do is just kind of quickly go around the room so everybody can know who everyone is, maybe a little bit like why you decided to come to this session. And I'll start. My name is Mike Mastrota. I work in facilities management. I'm a landscape architect and planner by training. And now my title is Arboretum Manager, so I manage our campus Arboretum. Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Destefano. I'm the grounds manager here on campus. I've been here for 15 years and also an AU alum. I got a master's in public anthropology a few years ago, so I can see from a student perspective as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kiho Kim. I'm faculty in the Department of Environmental Science, and I, with Larry Engel over there from the School of Communication, we serve as the academic liaison to the Airlie Center, which we'll talk about what that actually means.
I'm Sean Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Auxiliary Services as well as the Executive Director of the Airlie Center.
Well, we just kind of quickly go around.
Alan Ford, Department of Computer Science.
Garrett Buddy Place, School of International Service and Agriculture.
Vicki Knotten from Biology.
Larry Engel, SOC, faculty liaison.
Michelle Special, I work here in grounds, but I'm also an environmental science master's student.
Megan Lippy, I'm the Director of Sustainability.
Hannah Tavilius, and I'm the outreach manager for the Office of Sustainability.
Stacey Marion, I'm in the library, and biggest fan of Mike in the Arboretum.
I'm Ben Laff. I teach in the law school.
Melissa Knapp, I'm a new MS student in environmental science.
I'm Sibel Kusimba, I'm from anthropology. I'm from biology.
I'm Steve McAvoy, I'm chair of environmental science.
Carla Flink, faculty SDA.
Catherine Ray from the University Library with Stacy.
Also a fan of Mike in the Arboretum.
Lindsay Northup Moore, Director of Disability Support, Marion Stacy.
I'm Sharon Chipolowska. I'm in the history department and the public history program, and we're always looking for interpretive opportunities.
Great.
Chris Tudge, biology, and I guess I'm now the third biggest fan.
It's nice to know we have so many fans. And it's great to see kind of a real nice cross-section. I know we have a lot of environmental science, sustainability folks, but also history and law school, and so that's really exciting. So welcome. I'm going to quickly go through. I think everyone has seen our campus. You've lived here a little bit. You know it's a great place and it's an active place and a place that students like to hang out in, hopefully experience, and are looking forward to our spring coming up because we always have a beautiful spring with our display. But it wasn't always that way. So back in 1997, so I've been here this is my 21st year, I can't believe it, but this is when I was hired by the strategic plan, which called for a campus beautification program. And with the goal to make the campus exceptionally beautiful and distinctive among urban universities. This is what AU looked like. I probably, unless you've been here as long as I have, you don't remember where or would recognize where this is. But that is the Patel building there on the left, and Kogot would be on the right. This is a roadway that came up to the quad because it used to be parked all over the quad, the parking lot. And that's, of course, been changed to that walkway that goes down by the 9/11 memorial that we know today. The quad used to look like this, and it's that's been transformed as well during that time. It's much more lively, much more active than it ever used to be. The other end, our K Spiritual Life Center. I always love this picture because it looks like the doors were made of plywood and the place was boarded up, but it wasn't. It was actually open. But when we just changed the doors out to a glass door, and put a landscape around it, it really made the building change. And of course, my favorite of all times is this is the entrance off of Mass Avenue. The first thing people saw when they came into AU was this parking lot, which is often used as a construction staging area. And this was taken kind of from the POB front door, looking down, so the president got this view every morning, and all the guests that came to the POB got this view. And we were able to take that parking lot out when the CAS-ENVS garage was built and turn it into this, this really exciting green space that is the kind of the entrance across from the Welcome Center for all prospective students. So the Arboretum idea came about a few years after I got here. It was really a staff idea that was brought up to the administration and accepted. And it was really based on these 4 things. We thought we could help with recruitment and retention of both faculty and students, of course. Fundraising, community resource. As you know, we're surrounded, like a lot of universities, with a lot of residential communities. And sometimes there's some conflicts between students and neighbors. And of course, what we're going to spend a lot of our time talking about is our expanding educational opportunities like campus. So quick things going through, you've seen lots of campus tours, prospective students. When they come to AU, they go through the Arboretum, and they go into for the opening convocation. And the numbers kind of dictate that the Arboretum at least has had played a role. 1990, when the campus looked like this is actually the front of the Airlie Center. We had about a little under 5,000 applications. And then some of our more recent numbers, this is 2016, up to 19,000. So you see that, a lot more people want to come to AU. So I think that's helping. I put this in there. This is probably a spot that most of you don't know about. It's in front of Krieger Hall. It's a little garden oasis that was created by a faculty member who gave a gift to the university upon her retirement. Another donor space. We're now kind of moving into that fundraising. So the Arboretum is a thing that alums, neighbors, faculty sometimes want to create something or give something back to the campus, and it's just a nice way to do that. Our labyrinth is a nice example of that. The cherry tree grove in front of East Quad building was a gift from actually an AU parent. So there's a lot of gifts. Community involvement. This is a group of neighbors, AU neighbors. So this is a positive thing. We can give a tour for them. It's raining. They came out still, their umbrellas. We've been doing these thanks to Joe Campbell, who's in our School of Communications faculty member, who came up with the idea that we would do full moon tours and open it up to the students and the neighbors. So we get, it's amazing the feedback. We've got like 50 or 60 neighbors. They come with their kids, their dogs, and we do a little walk around on the full moon. So it's kind of a neat thing. We've done some community events with Casey Trees. This is a real good example where we're in the classroom with a bunch of volunteers who are learning the values of planting trees. And then Casey Trees gave us 35 trees, and their volunteers went out and planted them. So we got free trees, free labor. We just give a classroom on Saturday. So it was pretty cool for us. So hopefully now we're kind of moving to the education piece of it. I hope all of you have thought about it, if you haven't done it, but bringing your class outside on a beautiful day, as you've seen here. So the campus is used that way. This is one of our tours. We give mini tours. In fact, it's kind of tour season. Like faculty are getting geared up for spring semester. So last 2 days, I've got at least 2 calls per day about setting up tours for spring. So we're doing that. We have our community garden. I'm glad Michelle's here. She kind of heads that up for us. And it is a community garden, so it's open to faculty, staff, students, neighbors, alums, whoever wants to participate. And it's down by the tennis courts. I hear a lot of good things from students. Like, I remember one student in particular said, I came from Indiana. I live in a farm area. I've always raised my own food. I had no idea here at AU I'd be able to do that. Kind of our best kept secret. This is on the green roof over in front of Nebraska Hall. This is, not Nebraska Hall, Nebraska Avenue in front of SIS, and it's a edible garden. So a lot of students, even seniors, have been here for, you think 85 acres and you've been here for 4 years, you know every square inch of campus, but oftentimes they don't. And Megan and Hannah are very familiar with all of our sustainable features that are part of our green roofs, our solar panels, our beehives, rain gardens. And now we're moving into some of the connections we've done with students. And Kiho's class is environmental science senior capstone class is great. They took the map that Michelle's working on, so our tree inventory. That's each of those little green dots is what represents one of our 3,000 trees on campus. And they came up with, as a group project, they calculated how much carbon is sequestered in those trees. Another one from this past semester was looking at stormwater on campus, and they really got into an incredible amount of detail and technicalities. Another group last summer, this is actually or last year and this year, we got 2 different certifications. One from the Audubon and then the Pollinator Partnership this past semester. Campus Beautification Day comes up in April. It's a great time for students to get out and learn about values of planting. They're planting a rain garden here, so they learn about what a rain garden is, why it's important, and then they can actually take some ownership and watch it develop if they actually participate in the same event. Another interesting project we did with the School of Communications was a class called Visual Literacy. And these are freshman honors students, and they took campus and looked at all the different accessibility issues on campus and developed a symbol system. They designed a symbol. They actually went out and spray painted them around campus. So unfortunately, they're all washed off now, but it was a pretty interesting project. Going into the arts, painting, sculpting is great on campus, as well as music. And this was a senior who graduated last year. She wrote an original piece of music themed on the Arboretum, and then she performed it. She conducted the AU Symphony Orchestra as her capstone, and it was pretty exciting. And Elizabeth is, this is kind of one of the things, those 4 things we talked about earlier about recruitment, retention, fundraising, community involvement, and educational opportunities. When we can kind of mesh all those together, I think that's where we have our most successful. This is a great example. So Elizabeth is a graduate student in environmental filmmaking. It's her major. And we had some money donated to us from a local community garden club here in DC. And it happens that one of their members is an AU alum, created the Arboretum. So their garden club gave us some money. We put out a grant for Elizabeth got the grant. So she's doing a film, kind of a promotional film on the Arboretum. And she's doing it like the entire year. She graduates in May, so it'll be done here this coming semester. And one of the neat things about it, so we're tying in the community, we're tying in fundraising, tying in helping her for her portfolio, and we're giving us something that we can use to promote AU. So that's a pretty win-win all the way around. And of course, the campus is great at graduation time too, as a place to really make memories. And you see lots and lots of pictures keep taking outdoors. And I just love this picture, since I think it kind of shows that at least some students we really leave a lasting impression on. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kiho and Chuck to talk about Airlie, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. All right. So you probably all know that Airlie was gifted to American University in the fall of 2016. Airlie Center is a conference and resort center out in Warrenton, Virginia. It's about 45 miles west of here along the 66. It takes about an hour without traffic, which never happens. It's about a 300-acre property which has a conference center, but lots of open areas as well as some wooded areas as well. This past year in 2017, Larry Engel and I proposed that we needed some focus for developing academic opportunities. There's a business side to which Chuck could talk about, but we also saw this as an opportunity to engage the university community in providing opportunities for both faculty, for students, faculty, and staff to use the Airlie property for lots of different purposes. The Airlie Center was created back in the late 50s and early 60s. And it was initially conceived as an island of thought where people came to think about and talk about and discuss important issues of the day. There are 3 threads that are particularly important to AU. One is that it was a place where integrated groups of people can come and talk about issues, particularly in the area of civil rights. And so one of the first meetings by the ACLU was held there to talk about the impact of the Board of Education, Brown versus Board of Education decision, how that would impact educational opportunities. So there is a long history, or a history of legal issues, civil rights issues that I think plays well to our own history at American University. The second thread is in the media arts. Murdoch Head, who created the property, was very deep into communication, filmmaking. In fact, Murdoch has 20 Emmys under his name for creating a series of documentaries. And the third thread is that it was also the birthplace of Earth Day. In 1969, Gaylord Simpson, the senator at the time of Wisconsin, came up with the idea of creating a time for Earth and issues of sustainability, which they didn't phrase it that way, but that's how we conceive it now. And in 1970, the Earth Day idea was born. These are some of the pictures of the property. It has a couple of water features. It has lots of open areas, but there's some wooded areas as well. And Chuck could speak to this. In addition to an organic garden, which you'll see a picture, a regular conventional garden was started as well. I wouldn't call it a garden because it's actually a farm, right?
Yeah. So, we put out probably a little more than we could show the first year, but one of the first concepts we had when we started looking at Airlie was an ability to be somewhat sustainable in our food program at AU, meaning that we're kind of our own best friend if we can grow produce at our own farm and bring it into the city. And so that was actually our concept we came up with, kind of 30,000 feet. Hey, can you do this? Well, the first year AU was focused and said, all right, go do it. And so we did. We farmed 20 acres in the middle of Warrenton, Virginia. Nobody else really out there is doing produce or what I'll call row crop gardening. It's mainly a cattle producing area. So we did it. We planted 40,000 plants. Ended up with about 45,000 pounds of food. The majority of that went to a local food bank. Because for us it was a test year. We didn't really understand yields and all those other things. I had never been involved in agriculture in my life. So the idea of farming was a little bit hard to kind of grasp until we grasped it. It was a big deal. So this year, we intend to do the same thing we did last year, except way more focused. So we've worked with our dining partner, Aramark. We've worked with local people in Warrenton to see what we can do to have a direct effect. We expect next year to have probably 40 or 50,000 pounds of food come into AU from our fields. What that really means for us is a controlled environment for our students, that they get the good stuff out of the produce, and we actually can put our students in the field if we want to. We call it a production farm because we're significantly concerned about production and yield and things like that. To Kiho's point too, we do have about a 3.5 acre organic farm. So the thing on the right is the organic farm, and the space on the left where you can see the very consistent rows is our production farm. We went from nothing. This used to be a hayfield. In about a year, we turned it into a pretty significant production farm. We had 3 acres of pumpkins that people tried to buy like crazy. We didn't actually even know what to do with them. We just ended up giving them away. I think the important thing for everybody in here is that AU is really, from my perspective, and I live in both worlds. I live in the AU world and I live in the Airlie world. AU has put a lot of time and effort and money into doing the sustainable thing in terms of farming. We also have 50 head of cattle. We also have purebred Berkshire pigs. The idea behind that for the Airlie Center is to have a sustainable restaurant. So we opened a new restaurant in the last 3 months. All the beef comes from our own field. So, and all the pork comes from our own field, and hopefully as much of the produce as we can.
Do we have chickens here?
We don't have chickens yet. There's some talk about goats or lamb or things like that. We've kind of learned the hard way that harvesting that stuff requires a lot of space. So as much as we want to bring as much as we can in, we are somewhat limited in space. But we're not limited as ideas. So Kiho and I spent a lot of time showing folks what first step can we take. I drove a transit bus into the middle of one of our fields thinking it could be a mobile laboratory, and we still have to work on that. But It's still there because there's no way we're ever getting it out. But so I guess that's my point. We have possibilities. We do have a lot of open space. We have two man-made, decent sized lake ponds, and we have a whole lot of opportunity to do what we want in terms of.
Yeah, what I'd like to add is that Chuck has been very, very welcoming in terms of ideas about how to engage the students, bring them out, ideas for projects, both in terms of teaching and just research. And so really, we have a carte blanche to figure out what we want for our teaching as well as our research. And also in terms of student engagement. I know, as being a field biologist, one of the most formative moments as an undergrad was going out to the field, spending an overnight collecting data and being engaged with both the faculty and my colleagues for a couple of days. And those experiences really informed the decisions I made about my own career. And so I think, and having students in our program go out there, well, this is actually a picture of the tree planted in commemoration of Earth Day. So the environmental science faculty went out there, obviously in the summertime, to reflect on the idea that in 2020 will be the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And because we now own Airlie, in some ways we sort of own Earth Day, and so we have an opportunity to use that as a platform for getting AU's message out there in terms of sustainability. And then this past fall semester, Karen Nee, one of our faculty, took out a number of students over for an overnight at Airlie. We bought an inflatable, so this is available for use. We haven't officially christened it yet, but we are going to name it RV Sylvia. Our president was very happy about that, but it was named exactly for her. There were some other Sylvias that we also had in mind. Sylvia Earle, right? You know, Sylvia Earle. So they were out there for overnight. They actually stayed at a property across the street called the Clifton Institute, in part because we're still working on the infrastructure for overnight stays for students on Airlie, but these are some of the things that people are thinking about. In terms of research, I just want to show you a quick video. Mike Alonso was another environmental science faculty, works on remote sensing to understand canopy changes in response to development, to climate change, and things like that. And so he flew his drone out to test converting video images to digital images so that he can quantify changes over time. And so what you're actually seeing are not live videos. The live videos were then converted into digital images, which then can be manipulated and measured. Oops, I guess the video isn't going to show, but just imagine that video by drones. And this is the bus that Chuck was talking about. I think this one's there, right?
Correct. The middle one is there forever.
We haven't driven the other two into
the other
yet, right?
Yeah, so this is the concept really, is that it's an off-the-grid kind of facility for our students to go into.
Right.
We are awaiting final check writing from somebody at AU to make that happen. But we already have the buses out there, so all we really need is somebody to tell us to put the PV array up, and we're golden.
And so the idea is to have the PV array for the electrical support for computers and other pieces of equipment. And I think we're talking about geothermal for conditioning the spaces. And so, you know, you take that stuff out of that bus, it's actually pretty sizable. And you can actually do a lot of stuff, especially if you have three, maybe one for a wet lab, so to speak, where you can bring a lot of muck in and you can hose down at the end of the day. A couple other spaces for dry work, where you have computers and other sensitive equipment. Or even spaces for meetings and discussions in classroom spaces as well. Yeah.
Portable editing.
Portable editing, yeah. Mock trials, who knows?
Exactly.
The other thing, we didn't have a slide about. We built a small farm, small barn on the production farm. That's where I office out of, and that is completely 100% off the grid. Runs off a PV array, and then when we don't have enough sun, we have a generator that's back there that runs on natural gas.
And then I think, and all that stuff is all wired, so you can see the data. And so if people are really interested in looking at how these structures function from an architectural or engineering perspective, that's available. And I think the idea is also to wire up the farm, right, so that you can have real-time data on everything from soil conditions to atmospheric conditions. So again, these are really cool learning opportunities for urban institution, right? If you go to Ohio State or Penn State, you would expect that because that's what they do, but you wouldn't expect that at a small liberal arts college in the middle of Washington, well, on the outer edges of Washington, D.C. So it's a really wonderful opportunity for attracting students that would not normally look at AU as an entire urban institution. As academic liaisons, Larry Engel and I would support from the Office of Finance and Bridget Cooney, we ran a day-long workshop trying to engage the faculty and staff in thinking about what sorts of things can we do out there. And so this isn't meant to be comprehensive, but really just figuring out the mechanics of engaging the faculty and staff and trying to figure out how we can best marshal the ideas and time and creativity and talents of faculty, staff, and students to then develop ideas for expanding academic opportunities. And so some of the ideas that came out of the experience included things like, can we create an Airlie index, for example, that would speak to the sustainability nature of the US, for example, or a particular state. Right? Just like the Dow Jones, it's a composite index of how well we are doing in terms of achieving some sustainability goal. And I think we have the faculty resources to be able to do that. Of course, we can certainly invite people to be part of that process. As far as I know, there is no sustainability index, and I think this is a niche that we can occupy given our possession of Airlie Center. And obviously, there are lots of other educational opportunities that could be had, and because Airlie sits really at the other end of the urban-rural continuum, I think social science research, anthropological research, and thinking about how that Route 66 really serves as a gradient of sort of political, socioeconomic spectrum across the United States as well as in this area. And so I think there's opportunities for a broad range of academic activities to be carried out using these two anchors, so to speak. And I think with that, the charge really here is a couple. One is to answer questions you may have, primarily, how do I get out there and what's out there for us to have access to? And also, the second one is, what other ideas do you have that we can then collate and think about and prioritize for expanding the use of Airlie, in addition to the business side, but adding the academic component. Obviously, we can't impinge too much on the business side, and so there are some constraints, but right now I think we have huge latitude in terms of how we sort of push this down the road.
Yeah, and the other thing I mentioned too is when we, I'll call it due diligence, when we looked at Airlie from a future standpoint, if you've been down that road in 66 and been in Gainesville in the last 2 years, there's been tremendous growth, right? And Airlie sits on the northern part of Warrenton in a prime location for where that growth is going to happen. And I think Kiho saw really early, we really can study what that's going to look like. There's significant development push up there. And so we will be likely another island in the middle of it. And will be probably not today, but 5 to 10 years from now, that will be occupied. When we did some research, Warrenton, as much as I didn't think it was, is 70 to 75% of bedroom community for DC. I would have never thought that looking at the makeup, but when we ran the demographic information is true. So what that means is the farther they push out, the more, property values gone up pretty significantly in the last 5 years. We'll see another increase, and then what we're doing at Airlie in terms of sustainability and things like that becomes even more important when their surrounding areas start being occupied by high density developments.
We've been talking about trying to find a pad for overnights in tents, so long as we have potable water and a place to relieve that water.
Yeah, and
And also just a stable.
yeah, and I think that's, I think we need to, maybe even I need to go back to Doug in the Office of Finance and see if there's going to be some level of commitment. So that we can have something more formal. Right now, we can probably find some stuff. We probably need something a little bit more formal.
I mean, certainly there's opportunities for D-trips out there to look at the garden, interact with the garden, and in the fall, they will need as many hands as possible. And so if you want students to do hard labor in the sun.
Which is always good.
I have a quick question. This is a great presentation. I really thank you. So one of the things we talked about at the workshop in October was a kind of calendar to organize people coming so that, like, when we're designing our syllabus, if there's like a planting day or a planting time, or to both cohere visits for your part, people there, but also so that we on campus can see, like, maybe it makes sense to bring a class to like a day where you donate to the local food bank, and that's kind of a community day, or a harvesting day for more kind of an agronomic analysis.
Right.
So I didn't know what you needed on your part.
I think we're at the point now in the farm that we're choosing crops. We'll make our, not to get too detailed, we'll make our order to Georgia, which is where a lot of the seedlings are from. Once we do that, and once we know we go on the ground, I think then we can start pushing dates out. But I don't think it hurts, and Larry's started this, kind of a Google Calendar. I don't think it hurts to go there and start at least having an open discussion about what are some high points for us. It's obviously Earth Day. We've done an Earth Day celebration at Airlie internally for years and years and years. I think maybe a test run for a couple of years before 2020 is probably not a bad idea for AU. So I think we can open that discussion with that kind of living calendar document.
Yeah, so Mary McCarthy, who's the Airlie coordinator for activities by faculty, research, or classroom activities, and I are working on a calendar so that you'll be able to see first who has reserved the bus and time to go out, and then you'll be able to see what slots might be available. But I think overlaying it with not only farm activity, the production farm, but also the organic farm and other activities would make great sense. It's just going to take a little while. I also created a Google form for faculty to fill out for either student research, faculty classroom visits, or faculty research. Again, that'll go to Mary and us, and I think it's just the data will be really, really important in terms of production and organizing the events. We have a Airlie email address. It's common. Airlie@american.edu. That'll go to me to start, and I'll push the form back to faculty or staff, and then Mary will coordinate the visit.
Stacy, question?
What kind of, are you doing any community engagement out there?
In Warrenton?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, we've spent a significant amount of time in the community, both the community food bank. We opened up our first student event was Larry's class came to do a fall festival for the community and for elementary school children. So they came and got free pumpkin,
free apples,
free potatoes, because we had 10,000 pounds of them. So take 150, it doesn't matter.
Basically, Chuck came to my visual literacy class, and he was talking about this, right? And they said, but man, I've got like thousands of pounds of pumpkins. I don't know what to do with them. One of our students said, let's give them away to the community. And I said, here's a fall festival. There's a video that I could. So we're going to also have a website. So we'll have a website that will hopefully be make it really easy for folks to go out, and also document.
So one of the opportunities I see both for the Arboretum and Airlie is, we can help you in your classroom work by creating projects that are right here on campus or out at Airlie. And one that just came to mind in this discussion about the farm would be, wouldn't it be great for a class to take a semester or part of a semester and survey the student body on what types of things they would like to see Earmark provide, and then maybe take the 20 acres and figure out like how much needs to be in, whatever, broccoli versus asparagus, or and then you kind of create a wish list that based on some hard facts. So it could be a nice project for students, different learning opportunities out there.
Yeah, one of the realities, and this goes to our first year experiences, we went really heavy on everything we could think of. We had 11,000 tomato plants, put everything in there. We started harvesting it, and there was no students. Because all the students had
Sure, it's
gone.
in the summer.
It's in the summer.
Right.
So the takeaway for us is we have to be early in the spring, meaning we'll have a co-crop that comes out relatively early. Our summer crop will be focused on the local community, so still providing food for the local food bank. We fed a lot of families fresh produce this year. Every week we were there during harvest, and every week there's families that kind of call about our trucks coming in.
Do we have little stickers, little round stickers that say AU on them?
Yeah, we could. We could.
Yeah.
So we can only them too as well. We have to fill them out.
The hashtag is AU at Airlie.
The other neat thing to do would be, you've got lots of land out there, but people live in the city, don't have that kind of land, so maybe there's a way to have a demonstration of urban, with indoor or grow towers or some of these urban farming ideas that could be a display and a way to educate.
But I want to follow up on what Mike was saying, that Airlie's sort of that shiny new toy, but I also want to sort of bring us back to here, because I think there are lots of opportunities on campus, and Stephanie and Mike have been incredibly generous with their time, as well as other members of the facility staff and the Office of Sustainability, in terms of figuring out projects and opportunities where students could do real-life projects. And over the last 3 or 4 years for my senior capstone class in environmental science, we've done a series of student-led team projects, which many of them have come to wonderful fruition. Some of them are dud, but that's sort of the way things go. But sending them out into the field, so to speak, I think really engages the students and gives them opportunities to create their own sort of path in their academic careers. So.
And environmental science is a logical connection. You can think in many ways that the Arboretum and Airlie can connect there. But some of the other more creative ways, and that's why I challenge, especially folks that are teaching different areas outside of the environmental science fields. Certainly in filmmaking, communications, we have a journalism. We have some connections there. There's a creative writing class. There's a poetry, the whole semester with poetry. And one of their class assignments is to pick a plant on campus, and either a perennial or a flower, and write a poem based on what the flower thinks about the campus around it. So there's some really creative things that you can do that are outside of the science piece of it. Whether it's creating original music. We had a co-guide marketing class one time, do a semester-long project on how to market an arboretum in an area like this. So, sustainability management degree in co-guide. And my favorite one now is our new computer gaming design curriculum, and we've been giving them tours, and they're basing some of their computer games on like the campus as a setting or laboratory kind of thing. So there are some neat things we can do, and you see everyone to brainstorm and think about it and let other people know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think developing the campus into an arboretum has provided lots of opportunities for AU to kind of develop a brand towards sustainability and kind of be known for that sort of thing. And I think Airlie's just an extension of that. And I think that has gotten the AU community, alumni, kind of excited about our campus and all the different learning opportunities Mike had mentioned during the presentation about the film that we're having made by a student on the campus arboretum. And that actually was funded by a local garden club. So I think there's also opportunities with Airlie, with maybe individual students doing research projects at Airlie, and maybe getting grants and just kind of raising the visibility of Airlie could possibly draw in some fundraising opportunities, and more attention to the university. Positive
Are you
PR.
growing this for the campus out there, like your own nursery, planting
I
or?
mean, that's a great idea. We
nursery?
haven't talked about that yet,
Yeah.
but, you know, instead of buying trees, what if
Right,
they are around?
exactly.
It's possible.
You haven't mentioned the conference center and hotel, is that off limits to us, or like?
It's not off limits.
Yeah.
One of the things when AU received the gift, part of the accepting of the gift was we were going to continue to operate the conference center kind of as is. And so we purposely haven't spent a lot of time in terms of, I'm going to be honest, we haven't deeply discounted anything yet for AU, largely because we want to see if the operation can kind of live on its own. Most university conference centers are subsidized by the university, and Airlie, while it's received some capital contributions in terms of infrastructure, the business model is to continue to do what it's doing. Long term, I think there's going to be some format or function of AU utilizing the property for its own use versus outside people. It just hasn't happened yet. We are in the middle of probably a 24-month renovation of the property. We spent the first year going through the infrastructure, and now we are redoing all the rooms. So the hope is that by the end of our renovation, it'll be a first-class facility for everybody, and AU will get to utilize it at a reduced price.
There's a question back there, and then, yeah.
My question is also about the conference center. I'm a historian. Where are the operational archives of the conference center? So all of this is basic history.
Yeah, so they're in a room in Airlie under, I would say they're in boxes, honestly. When we received the gift, there was a room full of file folders that were strewn and articles kind of randomly. To be honest, Airlie was the brainchild of one man, Murdoch Head. And if you Google Murdoch Head, you'll see a very lively background. In terms of how we operated Airlie in the early days, the self-promotion aspect of what he was doing. But the rich history is still there, right? We still have captured a lot of it. I think, we've started discussing what it would mean to have a professional somebody come in and archive everything professionally.
But we have one. We have an archivist in the library. We have a special collections and archives. There's a university archive. Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I think that's another opportunity for students, right? A project or student, big student project to run something like that, and for that work to get done basically for free.
Right. Also, there's some folks out there who have deep history or working there, and oral histories. With video would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, for example, I think we're talking about Rick Putnam, who was our director of farming and facilities. When I got there, he was the chief engineer. Rick was born in one of the buildings on property. He has been there his entirety of his life. He, at 15 years old, used to work in the kitchen at night. His dad was a cook in the kitchen. His mother was a housekeeper. And there's only one person you need to go to ask every question about the property, and it's Rick. He actually knows where the 1954 Chevy was buried, because in those days they buried things.
Right, so I see a lot of opportunities to bring in technology, research, to do archaeology work, or
X-ray.
things like that.
The front here, and then Chris, yeah.
So I was going to say, I have a similar thing. So I teach the law school, I teach nonprofit law, and Airlie very famously lost a really important, one of the classic nonprofit cases that I teach is the Airlie Center losing their tax exemption. So there's a connection with the students too, and so one of the things I wanted to know was kind of what are the opportunities to bring students out there. So what I'm hearing is not overnight yet.
Right.
Is there an opportunity to use a indoor space, or is it just that?
Yeah, and that's where we're somewhat unlimited. I can give people access to space, and it's the overnight piece that we haven't figured out yet. But actually utilizing
meeting space for a group of students who want to come out for the day.
Easy.
And maybe that again, that's a great project and a law project as well.
Was there any discussion about maybe creating some student housing?
Yeah, there was some early discussion regarding it, and I think that's what we're talking about, trying to have the university make some formal commitment about what we're going to do out there. as of right now, there's no formal student area, it's just the rooms. But I wouldn't be averse to putting up a facility up there.
Far away from the regular conference center.
You know, good.
Thank you.
We got two questions. One, from the farming perspective, the arrival of our new students on campus in August, I guess, doesn't really correspond with either planting or harvesting. So the opportunities, for example, to get our freshmen out there for their service week and stuff like that.
It's planning.
That's planning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jamie's planning it.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Second thing, because Airlie is, 45 miles away and 4 hours by driving, the students here on campus are generally not going to know much about it unless they get into a class. How about we create a space here on campus that showcases Airlie, that the students see all the time? Maybe in association with some plantings, maybe in association with some historical photographs, and a permanent setup where students are constantly moving.
The kiosks.
Maybe a library.
This will also have a
something like
CDR.
that, and permanent, not just, it'd be great to have one in front of the library type thing where it's transient, but a permanent space. So students are moving past it all the time and they want to know, what is this Airlie? What is it? And then the connection will always be there. And then once they go to a class and someone says, hey, we're going to Airlie, they won't be like, where the hell is that? Right. So I think having a small permanent space here on campus that showcases it, historical photographs, brief history, maybe some things like plantings and stuff, video, just showcasing it somewhere where the students constantly see it.
Yeah, my Vislit students created a 30-second coming soon to TDR, talking about the food farm to table aspect of it. And Doug Kravatich came to the presentation. He was really thrilled with it and wants in the spring to show it on a loop for a period down at TDR and on Four Winds. So I think that idea of a permanent space is.
Yeah. We can do almost anything, to your point. I mean, we have the stuff, we have the pictures. I mean, the easiest part for us out there is we're actually doing it. All the things we're talking about, I think the students would really dig. To Kiho's point, when they go to an ag school or land grant school, they expect that stuff. But nobody's expecting them to walk off Mass Ave and run into a farmer or something like that.
On the flip side of that, it might be nice at Airlie to have an American University permanent display. So if you're coming as a visitor to Airlie, don't know you, it's known by AU, that you know a little bit about AU and branch.
Alan?
Two quick questions. Is there a digital weather station at Airlie, and is it online?
No.
Okay, that's one thing that we should be doing. If that's location, let's start capturing some data. The second thing is, are you considering using sustainable agricultural strategies such as polyface farms, where you are rotating the species that are using the land to try to better manage the fertility?
Yeah, so I think you're discussing like specific animals moving to specific parts of.
That's one of the things that Polyface developed. It's an extension of the idea of a crop rotation by species rotation.
Right. We have engaged Pete Maybach, who's a local farm consultant out there. I think we are moving what we did this year around, but we are also trying to do what's best for the area. And so most of the local farmers out there aren't doing row crops, so there's not a lot of what I'll call comparisons. So we are going to have to move some things. Asparagus, for example, we can't move because it doesn't actually harvest till the third year. But other things we can. We'll change our corn and potatoes and things like that. But one of the things we're trying to do, to everyone's point, is we got to figure out what Airmark's going to use most of to get the most produce into DC. And our farm isn't flat either, so for those that have been there, there's grades and all sorts of things that are associated with it. So,
but I guess my response to that is that while that might be one laudable goal, it doesn't seem to me feasible that we can generate all of the produce that's needed for our students and our community. So trying to commit all of Airlie's efforts to providing food only for Aramark on campus isn't going to fulfill the needs of the campus in any event. So recognizing that your land is undulating, recognizing that there's other issues involved, just trying to generate food for campus shouldn't be the primary goal, I would say.
I hear what you're saying, but it's also going to make money. It's going to pay for itself. So, well, I don't think it's a test field for AU to go through and plant and see what happens. The modus operandi behind this is we have to actually break even at some point. And so, while I agree with you wholeheartedly that I'd love to be able to try everything we can, the idea is that somebody's got to buy the stuff that's coming out of the ground. And it's just kind of the cold hard facts of the situation. In a perfect world, we probably spend a lot of time moving things around and be very focused. We're just not there yet.
So back there, and then Steve.
Hi, I'm super excited to hear about this. I was curious how physically accessible are the spaces? And like the bus and any space, like the meeting spaces for students, staff that we're talking about if we bring our students out there?
Yeah, so the main Airlie house where most of the facilities are is ADA accessible. The bus we have is not ADA accessible, but what we figured out pretty quickly is I'm not sure that bus is the future for us getting out there anyway because it's not big enough. We think to address the needs, so my guess is whatever we do in the future will be accessible.
So right now, if we bring students out, any meeting space, we would be able to.
Any of the main meeting spaces, there are some one-offs which are old buildings that they renovated aren't accessible.
Okay.
So
but we can find it.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
And there's also overnight rooms as well.
Great, thank you.
Steve?
Just a purely logistical question. The transportation for students from campus to Airlie, there was talk of having a bus and a driver and all that, and I wasn't really sure where that was.
We have the bus. There's been some suggestion that the bus is not big enough and/or
So that you would just
and/or who should be providing the bus based on the students and how they live in the university and liability and all sorts of fun stuff.
So we want to get students there.
We're gonna have
There's
to
their
pay
own
at this
car.
point. Yeah.
So we still have the 25.
We still have it, yeah.
Yeah, so the max of 25 people.
So do you have a sense of what the cost would be for that campus?
No. Up until we met with some people in office and finance treasury, we didn't think it was going to be that much of an issue. But I think it's. To be honest, I think we can solve it long term, but just in short term, we're gonna have to.
A la carte.
Yes.
Yeah, and one note for all of you. If you're interested and you want to follow up, for academic work, it's Kiho and me. And you can use the Airlie at american.edu. That'll allow us to collect data on who's interested and when. And we'll coordinate with Mary McCarthy out through the Google form, and we'll create a calendar. So a lot is happening early in the semester, and hopefully we'll have a website, calendar, the form, so it's more automated, because I don't want to have to push a lot of emails and follow up and produce this. On the other hand, one of the reasons that I'm really interested in this personally is to both inward and outward facing be able to promote the activities that you want to do at Airlie. So by me being able to see who's going out, when to do what, will allow me to get my students to do what they can to document the work. Furthermore, through CTRL, I'm happy to instruct any of you on how to improve smartphone filmmaking and photography for self-documentation for you. But also I'm more than willing to come to classes and do 45-minute to an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions, as well as to staff on how to improve your smartphone filmmaking. Lastly, if anybody has an iPhone and is interested in filmmaking, you can get a free $15 key to redeem a great app for the iPhone called Filmic Pro. The entire university, anybody with an American.edu account, faculty, staff, students, alum, if they still have them, can get a key. Right now, I have 1,000 keys, so that's $15,000. But just for that, email either me, Engel, E-N-G-E-L, or Airlie. Either way, I'll send you the link to the code, to the keys. And again, I'm happy to follow up with instruction on how to use Filmic.
I'll say one last thing about the agricultural perspective, the agricultural piece of it. We also have a community garden out there, so if there's anybody in this room that is wants to get involved and actually do your own agriculture, that's the one thing we have is lots and lots of space. We have, yes.
We have one here too.
Yes.
Don't steal Michelle.
Sure, you can come out there. That's the kind of the thrust of this is how can we utilize all that space that we were given. We're trying to do the best we can with it right now, but we do want the students involved out there. We're trying to figure out the best way to utilize that space to help both AU students, AU faculty, and AU staff.
Alan?
I don't know how much time we have. Is there hunting on the grounds, and what are you doing about deer management?
So those are very good questions. We don't allow hunting on our grounds, but we do have an active cull program. We have taken about 65 does so far this cycle. There's a large overpopulation in Warrenton, specifically in Fauquier County, and a lot of those deer actually are on our property and adjacent property because of the kind of the rolling hills of the area. Some of our property sits on top of that, and so I would argue we have probably the largest amount of people trying to hunt our land in the area because of the availability of the deer there. So yes, we have deer. We have an active cull program that we have our staff. We have 2 people on our staff that specifically do that, and then the food gets delivered again to the food bank.
That may be another opportunity to help encourage students to engage, bringing that deer meat in as a culinary experience.
Venison here would be great.
Yeah, it's a thing that we have gotten away from understanding what it is to eat game.
That's right.
As a society.
There's some, I mean, there's some hurdles because the food has to be approved, right?
It has to be USDA inspected.
Yeah, it has to be USDA inspected. So it's not, I mean, if you want to eat it on your own, that's perfectly easy to do, but if you wanted to serve it to a restaurant, so.
Yeah, and that was my goal right away when we first got out there. When anything we found killed or we were going to put on the menu, unfortunately, some of that doesn't work that way out there.
Roadkill recipes.
Yeah. But if you're addicted to food television like I am and watching Andrew Zimmern and on all that, the way they try to use all of animals, and we're doing that right now. So when we harvest our cattle, we're not just taking the good cuts and sending everything back. I spent last weekend making bone broth at our house from our bones. We have CIA, Culinary Institute of America trained chefs that are using everything else as a part of bases and things that we're trying to be as respectful of the animal sacrifice as we can and using every bit of it. So I think I agree with you. I wish we could, and we will whenever we can.
Are we humanely?
We drive an extra hour to make sure we're going to a humane kill facility.
Terrible.
So is there anybody here who hasn't been out to the Airlie property? Wow.
Road trip. We should really organize it, a couple weeks.
Is there anyone here who hasn't been on an Arboretum?
Who hasn't been on Arboretum?
Newer.
Yeah, that one's easy to solve.
That one's easy.
Yeah.
That one's your next door.
Well, we'll make one.
We did their own request.
I mean, it's interesting, like, we usually gear our tours to the group. And usually people come back saying they're very surprised that, we didn't talk only about plants the entire time. We talked about the history of the campus, we talked about all the sustainable features, a lot of different things that people aren't aware of. And I've even people that have gone on 2 or 3 times say, I always learn something new. Because as Stephanie will say, none of our tours are exactly the same. There's never 2 that are identical. So I'd encourage you to do that sometime. If you want to do that or bring your class out, just let us know. We'd be glad to do that. Especially for like freshmen, because we can orient you like the first week of school. We'll talk about names of buildings, what's in that building, things like that, as well as all the other sustainable features and pieces of the campus that even the seniors that have been here for 4 years don't have. So, it's a good thing.
Michael, is there the opportunity later in the spring, before the semester's over, to spend enough time with a few students for wildlife filmmaking?
Yes.
In the Arboretum,
yeah.
Right? And that's also something we want to do out of there. That's what I want to do overnight camping out there.
Yeah, I just learned we have a fox that's living under our bleachers at the soccer field.
Is that right?
Yeah, so apparently it comes out very frequently. Have you seen it, Michelle?
Yep.
Can we?
Apparently it's a good-looking fox.
We have resident at night. We have resident deer population.
I haven't heard it at night, but
really.
Shriek is freaky, man.
Yeah.
Shriek is not.
Yeah.
There's another question.
So I had a quick question about the grounds. So I haven't heard anything about law school. With the law school now has this big open space. It's the same. That's you guys, right? Like we don't have some separate stupid. No.
No, our ground staff takes care of the law school campus as well.
And so, is there any plans to, or are we doing it and I just don't know about it, about developing or showcasing that big open space?
You want to answer that, Michelle?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
I'm part of the staff that maintains Stanley campus. We're working on it. We're kind of seen as contractors down there, so there's a little bit of a limited amount that we can do in a year. But I know probably in March or sometime we're going to be finishing renovating the rest of that field that everyone wants to play Ultimate Frisbee on.
Sure.
And then I know we'll have a couple other projects here and there.
Well, we work very closely with Tony over there and talk to him frequently. So if there's any ideas or requests to do something, through him and he'll communicate with us.
With the law school and East Campus, but there were large projects that were done by outside consultants and contractors, and now it just recently been turned over to us to manage. So we've got some ideas of things we want to change and fix and improve. Campus Beautification Day, April, is a nice opportunity for folks at WCL to come out, and we'll have a project there to help participate.
So yeah, it takes us a few years to get a new project kind of up to the same level as the main campus.
Sure.
We can also offer tours of the building as well for the sustainable features of the law school. Very sustainable campus. Much of the outdoor space is also a green room. Yeah.
So a question for all, sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. This is really interesting. I had no idea that. But I also wanted to say that last spring I invited a friend to have coffee at the DAB, and I have to tell you, it couldn't have been more beautiful than in Paris. It was perfect.
Great. So question for all of you, are there any ideas that you came up with during this session that we should be thinking about on how we...
There's a conference going on in Kyoto on national government policies and sustainability. Why not do something like that in Washington or in Airlie in response as a companion thing?
Well, I think the idea is if we're going to do something for the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, do that as a really high visibility platform for what we call Earth Day 2.0, or what we'd like to refer to as Earth Day 2.0. What does it mean? Yeah.
It also coincides with our commitment to be for carbon neutrality for 2020.
Yeah.
Have you copyrighted that statement yet?
I know.
Do it. I mean, my immediate response was, that's a great concept, it's timely, and if you don't do it now, somebody's going to get it.
Trademark it.
Yeah, sorry. Put it into print.
Have you dropped out of law school?
I have a follow-up question about deciding what's going into production in the organic farm. We have a contract with Aramark, or we're kind of in the middle of it. Is there someone at Aramark who's like our go-to person to do this brainstorming? If we had like student research ideas or ways to get involved?
There is an interesting kind of relationship, meaning that we do the farm and then sell to Aramark to a certain extent. We can give them what we want, and like somebody suggested, asking the students. I think you said asking the students what they want. I think that's a great idea. And essentially, Aramark just is a purchaser from us. They've given us some investment dollars, which we've already utilized, and they've suggested that they need to receive their specific things in a specific way. So we're addressing that. But outside of that, we have the latitude to kind of push our own agenda.
Is there any possibility, like we have the farmers market on campus, bringing things from Airlie and actually selling them in a farmers market? And I think that would be a great way of having something regular on campus that people can see and use. I don't know what.
Especially in the summertime when faculty are many people.
Yeah, faculty neighbors, it could be a big plus for our neighbor relations.
Yeah, to your point, we're open to anything. We just need to get the product here.
Total acreage again?
Of the whole property, just
Size, anything, yeah.
the whole property at Airlie is about 300 acres.
And the production farm is 20 acres and it's enclosed by a 12-foot.
12-foot deer fence.
12-foot deer fence. And then there's 5 acres of the organic garden.
Is there a place that might be appropriate for a deer exclosure to be able to do some comparative studies such as being done at the Smithsonian Biological Center?
Yes, I think I'd have to think about where we can put it. Again, we have large wooded areas. We have open space areas.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to look at what happens when you close off a grassy area from deer grazing and see what happens. I mean, those are the kinds of experiments that we do in ecology all the time. And so exclosure experiments are very, very common. And so there's space out there for us to do it. And again, Chuck has been very accommodating in terms of finding places where we can sequester those experiments and student activities away from sort of the main park, where we don't have to come in contact with the high-paying guests of the conference center.
Yeah, that'd be another great project to, do what you're talking about and then monitor if native plants are returning to an area.
Well, that's why I'm interested. But the corollary, and I think touching back on telling Airlie about AU and telling AU about Airlie, putting them where they're not visible, but making them available.
Sure. Yes.
As if you're interested in what American University is doing, here are projects on the ground.
Yes. Waterproof iPads that present what's going on instead of a plaque.
What percent of the produce is being bought by Aramark, as opposed to maybe selling it to Giant or Whole Foods?
So, can you ask that again?
What percent of your produce yield is already being purchased by Aramark?
Nothing as of right now. The first year was specifically donated to the local food bank.
So you're also open to selling to other retailers like Giant?
We will be GAP certified. If anybody knows what that means, we'll be GAP certified this year. It means we have an ability to go to the open market. We didn't have that this year because
What certifications are going through?
USDA GAP certifications will be done by the time our plants come out of the ground. So we could sell to anybody.
But if I understand right, the reason that didn't go to Aramark last year was kind of a test year.
Test year.
But the idea, the intention is to
produce the Aramark.
Point of it is the Aramark.
Aramark also has other campuses.
So UVA is interested.
I'm thinking about being connected to those retailers.
Yes.
I mean, that goes to the point, this is really exciting. I mean, we are not a large land-grant institution. Obviously, we're not going to train our students to be agronomists, but we have this use this as a hub for lots of other activities, whether it be in business or in law or in science or anthropology. And so I think it's a real resource that we should be very thoughtful in terms of figuring out how to make best use of it.
So I just had a question about coordinating. So obviously lots of legal issues have come up. There's like food and drug issues, all of these legal issues come up. So when you get legal advice, do you get it from AU General Counsel? So like all of your, or do you get it, does it Airlie have their own? If someone at the law school, like we have a certificate program in hospitality law at the law school, There you go. You get American University certificate in hospitality law. So, like, the idea that there would be, like, it'd be fun to integrate that with something that American University does. Would it the most logical thing be to talk to the general counsel?
No,
talk to you. Yeah, go ahead.
We are we are kind of on an island. We are wholly owned a separate entity. So we do have our own attorneys. We do get counsel at AU, but we function as a separate.
So, and you do have outside lawyers as well? Yeah.
On a related note, one of the ideas was, wouldn't it be great to have a very niche market hospitality program at AU?
Well, we have a component of that.
That's
right.
We did that. The business school is obviously interested in something like that.
That's a major project for Marriott.
Yeah. Yeah. And Marriott's right in town, and so there's opportunity for partnerships and a very new sort of sustainability, hospitality kind of.
And do think about the academic support that comes from multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary activities,
Cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary,
whatever it's called. And that was one thing that came up at our brainstorm design session, that having individual activities is terrific, but you're not really creating a vector that's moving in a direction as an institution. So the more collaborative we can be, I think the more powerful the Arboretum and Airlie cross-fertilization, if you will become. So don't forget that communication is really important.
So we've been given the time to wrap up sign from the back, so I guess that means we need to kind of wrap up, but I think there is an evaluation. I think we need to point that out, so please go ahead and do that. There's 3 different ways you can do it.
Did everybody, can I just interrupt? Did everybody here register for this session?
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who registered, we'll follow up with whatever next steps are. Right? I think that would make good sense. Maybe we'll keep using the Blackboard site for communication over the short term.
And the other important thing is that the raffle ticket bucket is over there. So if you want to win prizes, you need to drop one of your raffle tickets. So thank you, everyone.